Ben, and Sung Hee for inviting me. We really appreciate it here at the Northeast Big Data Hub. Can you hear me okay? Great, just checking. Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And Ben is going to be the host and admit a lot of you all as you're coming in. And so we're going to talk today about data science for good. And I was looking at your Careers in Science website and noticed that you've had a lot of data science stuff going on, which I'm really excited about because data science is going to be more and more important into the future. When you think about data, we've been doing data science forever. When we did years ago, we did, lab experiments in chemistry. We were collecting data and then making, recommendations based on the data. Data is used by the census, for, decades or centuries. But now data science is a field where we realize that we can really leverage the data to identify new insights that we didn't have before. And those insights can actually help us make better decisions. So that's why I look at this as data science for good. How do you use data for good? And then how do we build, data science literacy? And I know you all are doing this at Iona College. We have it at a lot of other places. I actually work for the Data Science Institute at Columbia University. That's where the Northeast Big Data Innovation Hub is located. But since I've noticed that this was in the Careers in Science area, I'm actually going to start with a little bit about me. So you can get a feel for what my career has been like in my life. So this is my personal journey. So a little personal stuff about me. Actually, my mother died the day I was born and my father left. I never met him. So the way I look at life is a couple of things. One is and since this is a Catholic college, I can say this, the only things I can count on are myself and God. Everything else is gravy. Everything else is a benefit. And, the other thing is that you really just have to keep on going in life. You can't let things stop you. You can decide to be a victim or you can decide to actually rise above it all. And so those are choices you make all the time. We all have stuff in our life. And that's why I talk about this. We all have stuff. You figure out how you're going to deal with it. You take it with you. It doesn't leave, but you keep going. So in the top left here, these are my brothers and my sister, which were originally my uncles and my aunt. Very complicated. So I love complex problems. My whole life is a complex problem. Actually, she just became 85. She was my mother's sister, but we call each other brothers and sister because my grandmother and grandfather legally adopted me. So family and faith is very important to me. And I feel very fortunate to have the family I have because I was born an orphan, right? So I'm very lucky. I've had some incredible mentors in my life, people that I've met. I call these my Florence Gump pictures. If any of you have seen Forrest Gump, he has all these pictures of all these famous people and people are like, oh my gosh, he's like, I just keep running. So this was me and Hillary a number of years ago at a Title IX workshop at SUNY Purchase, which is not that far from y'all. These are some of my IBM BFFs, Best Friends Forever, and a mentor. Nick D'Onofrio was our EVP at IBM. We still get together. We're actually having a Zoom call next week and I'm playing golf with Susan tomorrow. We were all VPs at IBM. And this is an interesting opportunity. Think of your peer mentoring circle. Who are the mentors that you can help each other through stuff? It's like when you have, study groups, but those can be mentors, into your life as well. I do a lot of mentoring. These are a couple of my mentees. This one's married with children now. Oh my gosh, I met him in college. I've met some cool people. Sonia Sotomayor, the Supreme Court Justice. She went to Princeton like I did. Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman, very cool. So when I meet these people, and Mae Jemison, the first African-American female astronaut, right? Amazing. When I meet them, I look at them and say, oh my gosh, look at what they've accomplished. Ooh, maybe I can do that too. And so that's what I really encourage you to think about as you meet people. Sally Ride, I met when I was in college. I'm the one on the left. And then I had her introduced to my daughter later on in life, Bonnie Dunbar, another one. I met Alan Bean, the astronaut, when I won a Grumman Scholarship. Many years ago, we had black and white papers at the time. And then this was my mentor in college, Yvonne Brill, who actually passed away a few years ago. And in her obituary in the New York Times, they called her the first US female rocket scientist. Very cool. So I'm very fortunate that I've been able to meet these people who have really inspired me. And so look at, the people you're meeting and how they can inspire you. So now I'm going to get into the Northeast Big Data Innovation Hub. Now you know a little bit about my background. So the Northeast Big Data Innovation Hub was established in 2015 by an NSF grant. NSF is the National Science Foundation in the United States. There are NSFs in other countries as well that I work with, but this one is the US National Science Foundation. We are a hub that is focused on being a community convener, a collaboration hub, and a catalyst for data science innovation in the Northeast region. The Northeast region is Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and then all the way up to Maine. PI, you're going to see me use this word quite a bit. PI means principal investigator. And the first time I heard that, I was like, why are they called an investigator? I was thinking of like, you know, a private eye or like Harriet the Spy or something. But a principal investigator is a researcher that leads a certain research effort. And when you're doing research, you're investigating things, you're discovering things, right? And so the people who lead the research are called PIs, principal investigators. We use this term a lot, so you're going to see me use it more. The hub also amplifies successes and shares credit across the community to encourage collaboration and mutual success. I'm thinking that maybe someday we can have a success story about Iona College and data science. So, you know, that's an aspiration I have for meeting you all today. We're very focused on building a diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. It's very important in data science for multiple reasons. I grew up as an aerospace mechanical engineer and a woman, not a woman of color, but a woman, very small club. Aerospace engineers that are women. And back then it was even a smaller club. I was the only one that graduated from Princeton my year. One flunked out and then I graduated. So very small club. And as I look at the data science community, what we're trying to do is think, you know, how do we help everyone feel like they're part of the solution? How do we get everybody working together right up front from whatever aspect and angle you identify as, based on, you know, your ethnicity, your religion, you know, your gender preference, whatever it is you prefer, you know, whoever you are, we want you to feel comfortable in data science. And there are multiple reasons for that. One is because we want you to feel good and do great. But the other is that when you're talking about using data, there are a lot of bias issues and a lot of ethics issues in data. You'll see me talking about a project called a Framework for Integrative Data Equity Systems. And when you think about data science, there are multiple layers of potential bias. One form of bias is what data you even choose to use. Let's say that, you know, you're trying to say, you know, well, how much of the community is this, or more spam. So how much of the community is, you know, this type of group? If you don't use a certain data set, you won't have all the data. But if you want to make the answer something else, you may choose to do that. That's terrible. People are doing that. So we have to be there to make sure that that bias isn't happening. Then you have bias in the algorithm itself, you know, how the algorithm is created. So it's very important that we have all these different diverse points of view looking at the data science process as well. So that's the other reason I want to make sure we're all in there. So as we go forward, what we do is I took this job officially in May of this year. I was actually involved since they were born in 2015, the Big Data Hub. I was on their advisory committee. So I was at IBM at the time in industry. Then I was a senior VP and an innovation officer at Internet 2, which is research and education. And now I'm at the Hub. I have my own, you know, consulting firm. So I've been involved from many different aspects, but I officially got this job in May. And so when I came in, and this is another learning to think about when you take over new, you know, leadership roles, we had 8 priority areas and we have exactly 2 humans on the team. 2. 8 priority areas, 2 humans. Ooh, what do you think? Way too many priority areas, right? How can you get stuff done? So I cut it in half. So I said, okay, 2 humans, 4 focus areas. We're going to use the word focus, and we're going to have 4 of them. So these are our 4 focus areas: education and data literacy, and our discussion today is definitely in that space. And then I'm going to talk about the others and show you examples of data science in health, urban to rural communities, and responsible data science, as I was just mentioning, including security, privacy, and ethics. And you can read about all this stuff at our website, which is nebigdatahub.org. So these are our 4 focus areas, as I mentioned. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight some of these projects, and you can see all of this at our website and click on these and see what's going on, but I'm going to give you a personal tour of what we're doing. So data science for good in education and data literacy. When we first created the hub projects, NSF had this vision of like a wheel. And so the hub was in the center, like the hub of a wheel, and then you have spokes, and then you have connectors around the outside. So we at the hub, we're this collaboration hub, right? We're helping everybody work together, including these different spoke projects. And the spoke projects were domain specific. That means education focused, compute focused, health focused, very focused on data science in a particular area. And so one of the things that we had was a data science for all related spoke grant. And that was involving the New York Hall of Science, which is where the World's Fair used to be, that big, if anybody goes past that in Queens. And they have like the old Apollo rockets and the big globe. And so they have these data literacy workshops they've been doing. They've done them at the high school level. They bring people in when they're allowed to the New York Hall of Science at the community college level. They even have a program they've been working on called Big Data for Little Kids. How cute is that? And so how do you teach data science to all of us and have us start thinking more about this? Like I remember when I was younger, there were like math problems and then word problems. Those were the really hard ones, right? Oh, those word problems. They say this happened and then a person got on at this train station. They went that far and now it's this time. You're like, oh, this is too hard. That's like data science, But now we actually teach them at all ages, which is great. And as you can see on the right, it's kind of cute that so that's one of the New York Hall of Science. On the right, we have the Big Data and Education Spoke project. And they actually have a MOOC, a massively open online course they've been running for a number of years. It's a Big Data, BDE MOOC. And they've actually had over 100,000 people use the MOOC, which is really cool. So they have all this data about teaching data science. And they're using that to understand the impact of education in data science. Like when you start teaching them, based on their age or their specific area, do they keep going? What makes them keep going? Do they end up writing a paper? Are they the first author of the paper, meaning that their name is right at the front? So they actually do a lot of really cool work in this area, and that's led by a gentleman named Ryan Baker, who's a professor at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. He's really wonderful. And we have these success stories on our website, and a lot of them actually are looking for more collaborators. So as an example, if you go to our website and you look at you click on the Big Data in Education and you go to their success story, you'll see at the bottom, it will say, if you would like to collaborate with us, send an email to Ryan Baker. So once again, we're this collaboration hub. We let people see this stuff. We help them understand it. We clap for the people who do great work, and then we enable them to collaborate with others. So that's the Big Data and Education area, and which increases data literacy. A new program we just announced in this area, and it's just getting started, is called the Northeast Student Data Corps. And this was a vision I created a few months ago. The National Science Foundation, or NSF as I'll call it, which we all pretty much call it, the NSF has a program called the Data Science Corps, DSC. And so they give out awards for that. So I wanted it to be clear it wasn't one of those awards, but it was something we're starting under this seed fund that we have to seed new stuff in the Northeast. And so the idea behind the Northeast Student Data Corps is a couple things. One is, remember, as I was mentioning, I want to create a very inclusive culture in data science. I want everyone working together up front. So that's really the underpinnings of this. So how are we going to do this? Well, we also want to make sure that everyone who wants it, we want to try to help everyone who wants it to get data science education. So this is a community developed initiative to teach data science fundamentals to students in the Northeast who don't have access to data science. It could be an underserved institution. It could be students that do not have access to data science curriculum. It could be a 2-year or 4-year liberal arts school or a community college where they just don't have the money or the focus to have these programs yet. It could be a student that isn't going to college, and wants to learn data science. It could be all sorts of people. And so what we're looking to do is we have a founding committee right now, which we have about 15 or 20 people on, which includes undergraduate students, graduate students, professors, higher ed professors, industry people, and not-for-profit people. So the whole ecosystem. And what we're going to do is meet later this month, and we're going to determine how to make this real. And there are 3 key activities in the Northeast Student Data Corps. The first is to develop a curriculum leveraging academia and industry-generated pedagogy and materials. So that means what we're going to teach you and how we're going to teach you to teach data science fundamentals and what we call translational data science. Translational data science is when you use the data and translate it into insights that can impact something real. It's not just, something as a concept. It's translational, translating it into winning an election, translating it into understanding COVID better in your community. That's translational data science. So IBM, God bless them, has already said that they are donating their Open Data Science for All programs, which are all on GitHub, which is a place for open sharing of data and code and stuff like that. And so they're already providing theirs. I have another institution that teaches R, which is a tool that's used in data science a lot. If you go into it, you'll hear about R and Python, two of the key tools that are used in programming languages. And so we have people donating this stuff. And then we also have institutions that can donate, what they have. So we'll create this, cadre of data science education, open source data science education. And then we're going to assemble a peer instructor team of students. So these are undergrad, grad, and postdoc students, after they've received their PhD and they're still hanging out in the education world, that will actually teach these other students that want to learn data science. So they'll understand them because they're students too, right? And they just went through this. So we have a few students on our team that are Columbia students, Columbia University students. We can only hire Columbia University one. And they actually are going to be on this Northeast Student Data Corps. And so one of them said, oh gosh, it was really hard for me the first time I took economics. I'd love to help them. Or statistics. Oh, I'd love to help them. I know statistics was tough for me too when I first, took it, or learning SPSS or whatever. So the people who had to go through it can actually teach, help teach the people who are going through it the first time. And we're going to work out with, based on their personal view, what's the best way to do this? Can we just send people to, this GitHub repository that has a very clear curriculum and then have mentors, have office hours? Do we actually have online teaching? Do we create podcasts? What are we going to do? So that's why we have a founding committee. So we don't just make it up and guess what would be good, but from the perspective of the students, what would be most valuable for you? So that's going to happen. And then we're also attracting an outreach committee to identify collaborators for teaching, learning, and then for translational data science, real use cases in the world that we can give them to apply their data science skills against, and potentially student internships as well. So we're really excited about this program. We announced it as part of a seed fund program. In our NSF grant, we had the initial one in 2015 for $1 million a year. Then in 2019, we got our second award for the next 4 years, which is now, for $1 million a year. And as part of that, each year we get $250,000 to provide seed fund grants. And so this is the first year we did it. They didn't do it the first year before I got here. So we actually have $500,000 to give out. So we had a seed fund grant proposal program, and we received 40 proposals, which is really cool. But since we have money there, we kind of tucked this under that to see how that, we're seeding the future of data science literacy. So we're really excited about this. So that's the Northeast Student Data Corps. And you can go to the website and read the insight paper. I don't call them white papers anymore. Once Black Lives Matter came out, and I was working for the NSF Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, Indiana University, and we scrubbed all our stuff and took off blacklist and whitelist, which is a term used a lot in cybersecurity. We're trying to make this more generic. So my white papers are called insight papers now. so you can read the insight paper on that website. And if you'd like to get involved, I think we closed the submissions to apply for the founding committee October 1st. But after we figure out what we're doing, we're going to have to open it up again and ask who wants to participate. But if anybody wants to be on the founding committee, you can let me know. I think the application is closed, but we're friends now, so we can always do something. And we haven't had our first meeting yet. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about data science for good in healthcare, one of our other focus areas. So we were really fortunate. We received a grant from the National Science Foundation in May called a COVID Rapid Award. And RAPID is actually an acronym, kind of, not really. But what it stands for is Rapid Response Grants. And so when there is a dire emergency, like a pandemic, like floods, like fires, NSF can actually create a special program to give money to researchers to help figure it out. So when COVID started, COVID-19, and we all got, clued into this, they created this COVID Rapid Award mechanism. like in February, like right away, boom, boom. We applied in March and we got the grant in May, and then we delivered this COVID Information Commons. I'm going to tell you more about it. You can see it serves as an open resource to explore NSF-funded research addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's really fun. It's totally an open website. Anybody can use it. It has these 2 search mechanisms. If any of you have ever looked at NSF grants before, I spent a lot of time doing this. There's an NSF simple search, which is very polite the way we say it. And so you can go in and look by the different directorates. They have 8 focus areas or directorates in NSF: biological sciences, computer and information science engineering, education, human resources, engineering, geosciences, mathematical and physical sciences, social, behavioral, and economic sciences, which is actually one of the largest award areas for COVID Rapids, which is very interesting. How are the humans dealing with this? Which we're all humans dealing with this, right? How do we feel? And we all feel a little weird, I think, if not really weird. So there is a lot of research going on in this area, which should warm your heart, warms my heart. And then the Office of the Director, which is where our award is for the COVID Info Commons. So I'll show you more about that. Then we have this really cool project going on that's being led by Chirag Patel at Harvard and Vasant Honavar at Penn State, and it's the Exposome Data Warehouse project. And this is really cool. They're creating tools and big data for mapping environmental and disease disparities. So an exposome is the comprehensive, multi-scale, time-dependent array of exposures humans encounter. There are general external exposures, education, financial status, psychological and mental stress, specific external ones, radiation, pandemics, things like that, and then internal, some of the other aspects that we all deal with. So it's very interesting. They're looking at all this data. They have this really cool twin database because those people have their genomic data is the same. And the question is, what about their exposome data? Nature versus nurture, very interesting. So these are a couple of the projects I'm going to talk quickly about. So the COVID Info Commons, we call it the KIC, was launched we received the award in May. We launched it in July. So very quick, we were rapid as well with these 2 search mechanisms. We have this simple search on the NSF, to the NSF award database. And then we have this really cool machine learning generated map tool that we call the COVID Research Explorer. We did that through July. We created this. And then in phase 2, we enhanced it a lot. We created webinars of videos, user tutorials, our launch webinar. We created a Meet the Researchers page where you can go in and see lightning talks, PI, remember PI, we talked about principal investigators, the researcher lightning talks that are 5 to 6 minutes each, and you can learn more about their research. Global resources, including data sets and from 6 continents. So people know we have this website, so they send us all this stuff. Lots of groups and guides, research funding opportunities, events upcoming and in the past. We also reached out to the PIs for the 723 COVID Rapid Awards, and 170 of them filled out a survey to give us more information. Their ORCID ID, and if you don't have one yet, someday you might, ORCID, and an ORCID ID actually provides access to a list of all of your published documents that have a document identifier, or DOI. So we have that information, plus we have links to their research. And then this month, we're adding PI data that they provided for us, the PIs themselves. So it's a really cool website. And we're also creating a student engagement plan. So we want the new search mechanism with the PI data available first so the students can look for collaboration opportunities they might be interested in. And then we're going to announce a student challenge or engagement plan with, write a paper and then you win, or second, third place. We're going to come up with some criteria. I've even had people ask me if high school students can participate. I'm like, oh, we really have to think about that so we do this the right way. And now we're developing thoughts on what can come after the COVID Info Commons to continue this great work. So I'm going to give you a little run through of what this COVID Information Commons provides. If you go into it and you go to this click for COVID Research Explorer ML Maps, you're going to come to this page, which is an NSF Awards topographical map. And so there you can see there are 723 documents or awards in the database. This query took 5 seconds. There are more people using it every day. So it used to be like, milliseconds or microseconds, and now it's multiple seconds, but still really good to get your query back. If you ever or go into information technology, those numbers are important to your users. How quickly does it respond? And so you can see here a pattern recognition across these awards of the areas that, the keywords for the areas where there are the most awards. So you can see some of the really popular ones. This is very interesting, viral and proteins. You see proteins down here. If you were to look at this three-dimensionally from the side, all these different concentric circles means it's a higher mountain. So there are a lot more awards in that area. So you can see protein and viral here. You can see academic and learning. You can see survey and social distancing, the media, personal, interesting terms. And then if you were here, you can kind of, zoom in and learn more. There's a query mechanism over here, which I like, but I'm a geek. And I'll show you how to use that more. It's pre-bottled this way when you get to it. And then for any of the words you click on, you can get all this information. Here is a Rapid Award that's at University of California, San Diego. This is the award number. This is the PI or the researcher, Massimo Franceschetti. He got $200,000. There's his email address if you want to reach out to him. And he's in California, and this is the program officer. And when you use this field search over here, you can actually change that. So this gives you a very interesting view. I'm like right brain and left brain together, so I like the graphical view. And then what you can do is get into this, what I call the finite element modeling view. As an aerospace engineer, you do a lot of finite element analysis where you break things up into teeny tiny pieces and then put them all back together. So I love this view. This is like how I grew up, looking at views like this. And so this is a view of all the awards again, but categorized in these like clusters of subjects. Once again, if you click on any of them, you can see a little more about them. This is another one from the University of Notre Dame, a SARS-CoV-2 related award, once again, with the PI name and email address so you can reach out. So this is another view. It's called a tree map view. And there's actually a user tutorial in the webinar videos on the website, so it teaches you all this again, but you're getting a quick primer here today. Then you can also look by state, and you can look by institution. And if you go into this little thing here, you can say, well, color it by, notice all these different colors. It's not random, it's on purpose. So I color it by state, and you'll see why. There are different ways you can do it. There's a drop down here, you can pick other choices. I like to size it by amount so I can see how much money they got. I label it by institution because it helps me hone in on where they are. And then I want to highlight the same color. So that's what I do. So then we can look at it also, just click on one of the awards in California and it lights up all the awards in California. You can do the same thing for New York or, pardon me, any of the states. There's even an award in Puerto Rico. So once again, if you click on one of them, this one is at Sonoma State University, you see the information. And then down here, this is called the award abstract. This is what you would find on the NSF Simple Search site as well. And so that's the public information related to the award. But this is very interesting. You can look at different states, then you click on one in New York, you would see how many in New York or Illinois or whatever you want to see. Then what if you say, I really just want to hone in on California. I'm doing a lot of California presentations these days, so I customized these charts for them recently, and I figured I'd just share them with you. So if you go in and change the query, if you use Boolean algebra, and, or, so we have and here, state California, it shows just the California awards. You'll also notice here, if you're really good at detail, that there are some misspellings here for COVID, and that's on purpose because NSF looked at their data and some of the awards actually misspell it. So if you want it to come up in the query, you have to put the misspelling in. It doesn't have to make sense, but this is like another data science mechanism. You say, well, I'm looking for COVID awards. Like, well, not everybody calls it that, right? So that's why we have, Corid and Corvid and, all this other stuff. Uppercase, lowercase, SARS-CoV-2 is used a lot. So, and coronaviruses, which of course have been around since like 1964. So here we see that there are 77 awards in California, very interesting. Here's one from the Scripps Research Institute I clicked on. But let's say you're looking at this and you want to say, I'd like to see who the PIs are. You can actually go in here and you can actually change the view and get the names of the humans as well. And I didn't want to spend too much time because we have a lot we're doing today, but you could actually look at the tutorial video and the launch video on the website and see all this stuff. I go into a more detailed explanation. And so we had this portal to look at the awards, and then we had a launch webinar in July, and 178 people came, totally shocked us. And we requested 2 of the PIs or researchers to present on it. And I begged one that I knew, thinking, no one's going to say yes. Who would want to come to this Geek Fest, right? And 40 more researchers asked to present. I'm like, nah, I can't have you all present on a 1-hour webinar. So that day I said, okay, congratulations. Based on your energy, you are now part of the COVID Info Commons community. And so we started doing these monthly webinars. On September 16th, we had a PI Lightning Talk webinar. We had 72 attendees with 8 researchers presenting. We have another one October 16th. You can go to the website, go to events and sign up for it. It's free, it's open, anybody can come. And we're gonna be doing these for a while because we have like another 10 this week that just asked to present. So we'll keep doing this as long as people have the energy to do it and collaborate. And already from the ones we've done, we have people already working with each other. And we're really feel very fortunate. Nora here, actually from Laredo College, which is a Hispanic serving institution in Texas. She's one of the PIs, the COVID rapid PIs that spoken on the September webinar. And at the end of it, she said, your site and the ability to come together is marvelous. I almost started crying. I thank you especially for thinking about this and bringing us together. People will be able to use your KIC site as a proper, safe, true information source, which we know is an issue these days, right? How do you know you're looking at real data? So that's what we've done. We've created a COVID Info Commons community. You can sign up for that through the website as well. We have over 250 people in it. We have a Slack channel you could join as well. That's also on the website. And so we're going to keep nurturing this community and helping them collaborate with each other to further COVID research to help all of us humans. So on the Meet the Researchers page, you can see separate COVID lightning talks. So what we did is we took like Nora and Debbie and Ajitesh, we took their lightning talks, which are 5 or 6 minutes, and we separated them all out so you can actually go learn about their specific research. And you can see there are a number of them here. As we add them over time, we'll start categorizing them, but this is initially just the, we've done like 11 to start. And then Meet the Researchers also has interviews we've done with researchers in the Northeast, which is our hub area, and some of the other hubs are going to be doing it as well. Actually, you may notice that this says the Big Data Innovation Hubs. The COVID Rapid Award was given to the Northeast hub, but it requires collaboration across all 4 hubs, so we support the whole country, which makes a lot of sense. So we do this as a community. The Northeast hub is out of Columbia University. The South hub is out of Georgia Tech in North Carolina. The West hub is out of Berkeley, University of Washington, Seattle, and UC San Diego in California. And then the Midwest hub is out of University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, but they cover their whole region. And so we do this as a community of the Big Data Innovation Hubs. So we're thinking about how we may, continue this 5 questions with COVID researchers. And we ask them, what research you're doing, why are you doing it, what are you hoping to get out of it, what type of data are you using, what type of data will you use, are there any collaboration opportunities, those type of questions. So you can learn about all that. If you were to go to the website and look at the global resources, you look at the research funding opportunities, US international, these are the global data sets that we have, North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Australasia, and Africa. Australia is now Australasia. I learned it as Australia when I was a kid, so I'm glad it changed. And then we have groups and guides, organizations, networks, and references. Then if you go to the events page, you can see the next one is October 16th, which is coming up. You could register if you'd like, and then past events as well. And these are some of the researchers, just to give you a view of samples. There are these rapid research awards. There are others called EAGRs, which stands for Exploratory Early Concept Grant for Exploratory Research. And those are on there as well. And some of them are collaborative between multiple institutions. You can see there's University of Texas Arlington, and you can see that there's, Howard Stone at Princeton. This actually, he runs the department I was in. I was at Princeton, Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering. So he actually showed human breathing and the asymptomatic spreader, like 6 feet isn't enough, which you've heard. So that's interesting. And you can actually see the pictures they have of people like coughing and breathing, the actual flow of the particles. And then UCSD, explainable machine learning for analysis of COVID-19, chest CTs. So very interesting range, Chicago, California, Texas, and Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Florida, a lot of different universities. And then the next one in October, you'll see is University of Missouri, Columbia, using genome sequence analysis, UC Riverside, Michigan, University of Buffalo, Albany, Texas, and Washington University, GW University, which is in DC. And there are some small businesses that actually also can get these grants if they're research oriented. And this one is a company called Credential Engine. So this is the type of info you can find through the COVID Info Commons. We would love for you to participate and help us, because this isn't the first pandemic we've had as humans. Chances are it won't be the last. So it would be good to get involved in understanding what we can do about it. I told you a little bit about the Exposome Data Insight pilot project. Here's a list of some of the databases they leverage. It's about 20 terabytes of geographical, epidemiological, and demographic data, including socioeconomic data, NOAA data, which is the National Organization, NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. So, NOAA does weather maps and stuff like that, but they have a lot of climate data, the EPA, pollution data, the CDC, USDA food deserts, people who don't have access to food. And what they look at is they query this data, which is data science problem, querying the EPA data, the NOAA data, and then they're actually leveraging this TWINS database they have to look at how much of the phenotype, how much of your physical health outcomes actually are based on your genetics versus the environment. Very interesting. So data science for good in urban to rural communities is an area we're just developing. We've been working with the West Hub on the Driver Video Privacy Challenge, along with some of the Department of Energy national labs on how can we gain safety insights from in-cabin driver video while preserving privacy. We also are partnering now with Quasi, which is the consortium of universities for the advancement of hydrological science. They're sponsored by the NSF as well, and they provide hydrological data, models, and code, and HydroShare is one of their open tools. You can get to all this from our website. And then we've been working with US Ignite, which is a not-for-profit that works in the smart cities area, and they've developed a smart cities data exchange to help the city organizations share data about smart transportation, water management, things like that. In responsible data science, there are a number of things going on, and there needs to be even more. We have a trustworthy data working group that is run by Trusted CI, the NSF Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, where I was a special advisor, as well as all the big data hubs. And we look at what attributes do you believe scientific data must have in order to be trustworthy? Accuracy, integrity, methodology. We did a survey of scientists and researchers and professionals, and had 111 people respond and came out with how people feel about this. A lot of them feel like their data is trustworthy, but they said if you gave me new ideas on how to make sure, I'd be happy to listen, which is a good thing, right? So that survey and that report are going to be coming out soon, and then we're going to look at what we can do as a follow-on to that. We also announced a cybersecurity risk initiative, a connected healthcare cybersecurity workshop, and we just finished. We have about 33 people who've signed up to help with that. And that's a partnership with IEEE, which Ben had spoken about, which is the Institute for Electrical and Electronic Engineers, because I happen to lead a working group there on clinical IoT, Internet of Things, data and device interoperability with TIPS, trust, identity, privacy, protection, safety, and security. And then there's this really cool project that Julia Stoyanovich at NYU is working on, along with University of Washington and the University of Michigan, on an institute for a framework for integrated data equity systems, as I was mentioning before. As we use data, are we using it in an ethical way and to enable equity? So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I figured I'd give you a kind of a big overview, and then you could see what's of interest to you. And it may be something totally different. Who knows what you're going to ask? And so all of what I've talked about is available through anybigdatahub.org. And feel free to connect with us. Sign up for our mailing list, which will be under the contact page. You can join an event, go to the events calendar, join us as a collaborator at the institutional level, follow us on Twitter, watch our videos on YouTube. We actually live stream our COVID Info Commons stuff, and it's up on YouTube as well. Reach out to us if you need to at contact.anybigdatahub.org. Share a success story. You can look at them, and then if you go to that page where we had the list of the 4 areas and the projects, they had a thing that said, add your project here. You can click on that and tell us about what you do and how you'd like to be part of it. And check out the Northeast Student Data Corps. I think that might be an interesting follow-on discussion. And that's it. So that's what I wanted to share today. I figure it would give you a nice breadth of thoughts, and I'd be happy to take questions or comments or whatever you all want.
Yeah, I was just going to say, anyone who has questions, please go ahead and ask. Thank you very much, Lars. That was great.
Sure.
So what inspired you to create this initiative? This,
The Northeast Big Data Hub or the Northeast Student
yes.
Data Core?
Well, both, if possible.
Okay. So when the National Science Foundation creates what they call a solicitation, that means it's an opportunity to apply for a grant. They created a solicitation because they knew they wanted us to figure out how to use data better. And so they created a solicitation for these big data hubs that was answered in 2015, and the awards were given out to create these 4 big data hubs. And so the gentleman who ended up running it, Rene Bastone, was a good friend of mine. We worked together when I was at IBM, and he was at the New York Hall of Science, or actually another organization, New York Academy of Science. And so he asked me to be on his steering committee or his advisory board, and so I was. And then they got another award. So I helped them with their strategy over time. And then Renee actually took a new job in February and contacted me because we're friends and I'm on his advisory board for the hub, and said, you know, I'm moving on to a new role. I said, oh, congratulations. I actually interviewed for that one too, but I'm glad you're taking it. He's moving to Tulsa. And I'm very excited for him. It's really a great opportunity, but we miss him. And I said, oh, let me think about, gosh, who could run it? And he said, actually, I was thinking you. I was like, oh, gosh, that's a cool idea. I have time, you know? And so I started as interim executive. I interviewed with the PI, the principal investigator, Jeanette Wing, who leads the Data Science Institute at Columbia. I interviewed to be the interim executive director, and they asked me to do the job. And so I started that like in March. And then like in April or May, they said, we'd like you to stay. I said, that's really fun. Okay. And so I did. And so I've always been involved with data. As I mentioned, I'm a mechanical and aerospace engineer by training. It's all about the data. You know, if you do aerospace engineering, you know, people who do, you can just look it up. We do this finite element analysis or finite element modeling. And what you do is like you take an airplane and you break it up into teeny tiny pieces, like little chiclets. And then you look at the lift and the drag on each of the pieces, and you put it all together to see if the plane's going to fly. So I've always been into data. I love data. I'm like a little mathematical savant. You know, I add things up in my head. I add up ceiling tiles. I'm terrible. I'm always adding things up. So I'm all about the data. So this is really a very natural thing for me. And since we create public-private partnerships, I was working with them when I was at IBM on the industry side. I was a VP and a CTO, the Chief Technology Officer there, and I helped us create our Watson artificial intelligence and data analytics strategy at IBM. So it was really, you know, very natural for me to get involved. I've been in an industry. I've worked a lot with academia. I worked for a not-for-profit after I retired from IBM at Internet 2. And so I understand the community, and I am the community. I've been in each of those organizations. So it was just very natural for me. So what I would say for you is think of what you really love to do, you know, and then look at opportunities to use it. And there'll be new opportunities for you. You're young. There are going to be all sorts of new things going on, you know, virtual reality, augmented reality, you know, more aerospace stuff going on, which is really cool now that we have commercial aircraft as well that go into space, like SpaceX. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to play in these areas. Or health. Health has been really good at leveraging high performance computing and data better. I actually was a VP in corporate strategy at IBM when we created our first healthcare and life sciences strategy. We acquired PricewaterhouseCoopers Consulting many years ago. And then my team worked with them to help create what should our healthcare life sciences strategy be, because they had consultants in those areas. And IBM at the time was still very much in the infrastructure and the hardware and software, mostly hardware and services. And so I've been in the health domain for decades. And then I helped build the Watson strategy at IBM for healthcare. I'm on the Computational Approaches for Cancer Steering Committee, working with the National Cancer Institute, or NCI. So I've been playing in all these spaces. It's very interesting. And if you look at my TED Talk, I actually talked about, you know, urban to rural communities and sustainability on a smarter planet. So I've been touching all these spaces for a very long time. And so I look at it as being able to continue that and continue to execute and help more people do it. So it actually ended up being a very natural fit for me. Does that answer your question, Christopher?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Sure, my pleasure, my pleasure. And then the Northeast Student Data Corps, as I mentioned, that's because I grew up in a world of engineering where people were very divided. The women, we felt very alone. You know, there was a Society of Women Engineers that actually started in 1950, before I was born, believe it or not. And it was 50 women engineers that felt very lonely where they were. Very lonely, they were all alone, right? And so they came together and created the Society of Women Engineers. Now it's like 20,000 women around the planet or something, very interesting. But we had a Women Engineering Society called SWE. We had NSBE for Black engineers. We had SHIP for Hispanic professional engineers. We have ACES for American Indians, Native Americans, and they're all separate. And so what I want to do is create a cohesive community right up front. We don't have all that yet. We don't have the constituencies all broken up yet in data science. So before they do that, I want them all to be together. So that's one of the reasons we're creating the Northeast Student Data Corps and this diversity and inclusion focus. And also to teach data science to students that don't have access to it. You know, there's a woman that's on the founding committee that's at CUNY, City University of New York, City Tech, which I think is in Brooklyn, and it's a Hispanic serving institution. And she created their Bachelor of Science program in data science this year. She just created it. And so we can learn from her, but maybe we can help her too, you know? So what we're looking to do is really get in there and help teach data science to more humans. So thank you for your question. Good question. Any other questions from anybody? Or comments?
I have one question. Well, it's kind of a two-parter. So after seeing how you've built this hub, have you ever thought to yourself, wow, this is an extremely powerful tool. We've basically made a Juilliard, a masterpiece. And my second question is, because this hub is so powerful, how strict is your vetting since you're accepting a lot of data from everyone around the world?
So we're very excited about what we've created, and this is your tax dollars at work. So we created this for all the people, all the institutions, everybody gets to play. We don't actually accept data. So we're a big data innovation hub. We're really a collaboration hub. We don't house the data. People have their data. But as collaborators come, you know, for me, it should be people within the Northeast US because we have these 4 data hubs around the country. But we also work across our hubs too. So as long as it's a real institution, a person that's looking for responsible data science work, you know, we vet them just to make sure it's not some rogue actor. But as you can tell, it's kind of a geeky community. So, you know, you can tell if you fit in and we can tell if you fit in. But, you know, people, we have these open calls. We just, you know, this, you know, Northeast Student Data Corps, the stuff on our website, anybody can, you know, submit. And then we go through it to see what makes sense. On the seed fund proposals, you know, anybody, you know, can apply. They have to meet the criteria. You have to put a bio sketch, you have to have the budget justification, you have to be, you know, and it's all on our website. You know, it has to be connected to at least one of our 4 focus areas. There has to be a real outcome coming from this. And on the NSF world, there are 2 key things we always have to provide in any proposal we do. One is the intellectual merit. What is so special about this? You know, what is it you're doing that no one's done before? And then what's the broader impact? How are you going to impact society? What's the positive societal impact you will have? So we do use those criteria as we look at the things we want to participate in. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. So the things we participate in and the people who participate with us. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have one. How strong of a background in the actual source material of the data do you need to have to effectively be able to work with it? Like how knowledgeable in the field of virology do you have to be in order to be able to deal with big data relating to COVID-19 and other things of that nature?
That's a very good question. So you can be a domain scientist or a data scientist. Right? So a domain scientist would be a virologist, an epidemiologist. They really know that area well. A data scientist would know artificial intelligence, machine learning, algorithmic analysis, you know, R, you know, Jupyter hubs with Python, all sorts of stuff going on. And what we do is we marry them together. So as an example, in the Exposome Data Insight Project, we have Chirag Patel, who's at Harvard Medical School. So he's, you know, like on the domain science side. And then we have Vasant Honavar, who's a machine learning artificial intelligence expert at Penn State. So they work together. And so what they do is look at how they can apply some of these data science techniques to analyzing the data. And so you can really be in either camp. And you can start, you guys, you know, the world is your oyster, or whatever you want it to be. You get it to be whatever you want it to be. You can go into either of those areas or both. And what we've started doing, like in the Computational Approaches for Cancer workshop that I've been on the program committee for since we started it 5 years ago, it's our 6th workshop this year. We actually have the Department of Energy people who work with a lot of data from like the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland and all this stuff. They're really good at data and algorithms. And then we have the medical professionals and the NIH, you know, National Cancer Institute, National Institutes of Health folks, and we started putting them together. And very honestly, at the beginning, they looked at each other like, what? You know, because they were like speaking different languages, right? You know, like, you know, the medical people would talk about a SNP, and people were thinking, SNP, what's a SNP? You know, but that's a very common term in the health field. And then the data scientists would be talking about, like, you know, convolutional neural networks, and they're like, what? Is that like neuroscience? They're like, well, not exactly. It's really the machine learning algorithms. They're like, whoa. You know, so it took a while to get them to work together. And that's okay, because you have to start that discussion somewhere, right? It's like diversity and inclusion, diversity of thought. And now in our 6th year, the proposals are really incredible. Like, they're really integrated. So you really can come from either side of it. And part of what we do is create this collaboration so that you can have both aspects. Does that help you? Okay.
Yeah, that helps.
Great. Thank you, Timothy. Any other questions or comments?
I was just going to say, I'm certainly going to be playing around with that COVID info commons and the way to change the visualization. That looks like a really, really neat tool, the way that you can change how it shows the data, what the different pieces represent. I really like that.
I do. I really love it. It's so much fun. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, how do I use this? This is so scary. So if you feel that way, look at the user tutorial. I go through step by step, and I even make mistakes and show you how to fix them, which is really, I think, helpful. So that would be, yeah, please use it. Tell all your friends. Anyone can use it around the planet. Thank you, Ben. I think there was one more question. Was there a voice almost?
Yeah, I had a question. It's a bit of an odd one, but what would you recommend for someone who's interested in, well, data science in general, but's not interested in collaborating?
Well, you don't have to collaborate. There are a lot of introverted researchers. A lot of them actually don't like working with other humans, very honestly. So you don't have to collaborate. Just become really good at what you want to do. And then you have to figure out, you know, how you would use it. If you're not collaborating with anybody, it might be kind of lonely. You know, you might not have translational data science opportunities. But there are a lot of introverts in the research and academia space. You know, there's a group called EDUCAUSE, which is an organization of tens of thousands of information technology professionals in academia and in research and education. And so there are a lot of introverts in all those groups. And so there was a speaker at one of their opening keynotes a few years ago, and they wrote a book about, you know, introverts and extroverts and all this stuff. And they said, you know, raise your hand if you're an introvert, and like 80% of the people raised their hands. And then the joke we all talked about was, those were the ones who weren't too afraid to raise their hands. You know, like, it's probably 98% of them that are introverts. So that's very common. You don't have to worry about that at all. But if you are going to do collaborative research, then you do have to collaborate with humans and or their data. But there are a lot of people like that, so you don't have to worry about it. You were brave enough to ask a question, so you might collaborate more than you realize.
All right. Thank you.
Sure, my pleasure. Well, I know, Ben, that you have to scoot because you have another class, I think. We said 12:55, so we're at 12:56. I want to be sensitive to your timing.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I'm going to leave the room open for now, at least. I think I'll be able to do that if I don't start my next one. If anyone else has any other questions, but let's thank our speaker one more time for an excellent talk.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and go do great things. I can stay on for a few minutes, and since I'm a co-host, I think that'll work out. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a question. From your experience, what is the most difficult thing when trying to remain objective in teaching and increasing data science literacy, especially to underserved communities?
Yeah, so objective is an interesting comment, right? because it's objective from your point of view. So that's why it's so important to have a diverse and inclusive community in data science, because you may see something totally differently than the way I do. So what's objective to me might not seem objective to you. You know, I even have good friends, we talk about a lot of different things, and they say, I don't understand blankety blank. I'm like, well, when something doesn't make sense to you, it's usually because you're missing a piece of data. You know, we tend to be logical, right? So if you're logical and you have this information or this perspective, so you would project this would be what people would say, and it's not, or it's not what they're doing, then you're missing a piece of data, the way they feel, the way they look at it, a piece of data that's missing from the analysis. So that's why we really encourage multiple points of view. So I'll give you an example. So I run this Northeast Big Data Innovation Hub. I have a woman that's an operations manager for me, and we've been hiring these part-time Columbia students. I tell every one of them, your perspective and your opinion are very important. I always want you to tell me how you see what we're doing. And if you think I don't hear you, tell me again. You know, because sometimes when people say something to you and you don't get it, like you ignore it, right? Like, yeah, why is that a big deal? Look both sides, you know, look, you know, both ways on a street, and you grew up like, you know, where there are only cows and goats. You're like, what's the big deal? Then you moved to Manhattan, there was a reason they told you that, right? So sometimes people ignore it though, based on their experience, their knowledge or perspective. So what I always do is say, I really want them to tell me how they see it. And if I'm being slow, like try to teach me. You know, I'll say, you know, if someone says something to me and I don't get it, I say, please tell me more about that. And when you say that to people, give it a try. They usually take a big breath and go, and that shows that they're really going to share so much with you. And you've kind of given them the permission, not that you need to give people permission, but when you on purpose say, can you tell me more about that? I'd like to understand that better. Then they'll teach you. And so I really try to use that too. And I'm not amazed, but I love it when they take that big breath. So give it a try and see what happens. But when you get multiple perspectives, it's easier to have it be what you call objective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure, good question. So always listen to others, especially if they don't look like you or act like you or come where, you know, came from where you came from or speak like you or whatever it is. The more diverse, the more interesting perspectives you'll get. Any other questions or comments? So you guys all remote or you have hybrid teaching? What are you all doing?